Welcome back to the Inside the Ring podcast. In episode 31, we will cover the WHL is set to add Penticton next season and Chilliwack in 2026 and 27. Gabriel Viladri is out week to week. And how does that impact the remainder of the Jets season? Sheldon Keefe was blunt with criticism toward Jonathan Kovacevic. Landeskog's a full participant in practices. Referees rob everybody of a Swayman-Kemper goalie fight. The GM meetings have wrapped up. We got a recap of that. And there's a continued mess of the Eastern and Western Conference wildcards. But first, we welcome my co-host, Chris LaValle. Chris, how are you doing this week?
I am fantastic, and what a wild week of hockey.
Yeah. And it feels like every week as we inch closer to the mark of playoffs, there's just something new that happens. And this is one of those weeks where I'm excited because everything in junior is starting to transition into the race for the Memorial Cup. But also we're in the home run, like we're in the home stretch of the NHL season. Is a lot of the top teams are going to start resting their guys and start playing guys in the minors to, like I said, rest their guys, but also get some reps in for like come playoff time. Maybe they'll find a guy who's been sitting in the AHL all season that's ready to come up, and it's an internal upgrade. But Chris, I don't know about you. We got a lot to get through, and there's a lot of hockey talk to happen, but let's hear a word from our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook.
DraftKings Sportsbook is Boston's hometown sportsbook. It's live right here in Massachusetts. Bet local on all your favorite sports from the comfort of your own home with DraftKings. To celebrate, all new customers will receive up to $150 in bonus bets when you sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook using code ITR. You can now bet local on money lines, spreads, props, and more with one of America's top-rated sportsbooks. That's DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Sign up with the code ITR to get up to $150 in bonus bets to use now that mobile sports betting is live in Massachusetts. That's code ITR only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
If your loved one is experiencing problems with gambling, call 800-327-5050 or visit helplinema.org to speak with a trained specialist free and confidentially 24/7. Must be 21 plus, physically present in Mass. Eligibility restrictions apply, subject to regulatory licensing requirements. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as free bets. Terms at DraftKings.com/MA.
Well, first, Chris, the WHL, they're expanding. They're adding 2 new teams in the next 2 seasons. Elliot Friedman on Saturday headlines broke the news, and then it slowly started to trickle out, and finally the confirmation came that the WHL would make the announcement today, Monday, March 24th, that the Penticton Vs will be joining the WHL in 2025-26 next season, and they will begin the expansion process / owner search for the city of Chilliwack to begin play in 2026-27. I follow junior, not as much as I'd like to, but I've gotten out to some WHL games myself. But watching a lot of film, looking at the prospects, this adds a lot of great stuff to the league. Is the BCHL with, just going to go on a bit of a side thing here, but with the BCHL defecting from Hockey Canada and the Canadian Junior Hockey League, and the system, the CJHL, is one step below the WHL, which is Major Junior CHL. That's a whole mess. But anyways, the BCHL became an independent league, and now a bunch of teams from the Alberta Junior Hockey League went over to the BCHL. The Penticton Vs was one of the teams in the BCHL, and now they're leaving the BCHL for the WHL. So this is a whole different ball game now, because the NCAA and CHL have mended the rule that if you've played professionally in any fashion, which includes the monthly stipend that CHL players do receive, that you were ineligible to play for a calendar year or 365 days. Now, with that being completely waived, the BCHL, which was regarded as one of the best professional or one of the best developmental leagues to go on to NCAA and even professional hockey, now they've lost their ace card. And I wrote about this recently, and the BCHL may not stay afloat as an independent league. I didn't say anything about it in my article, but I do firmly believe that the BCHL might have to rely on mending the fence with the Canadian Junior Hockey League and Hockey Canada by rejoining them and rejoining that banner. And with a top team like Pentatang leaving for the WHL, they're losing a significant amount of talent and firepower out of their league, because a lot of these players that were playing with the Vs are going to go to teams in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ottawa, like leagues all across the CJHL. So it only strengthens teams across all of Canada, or maybe even in America. But I think that this could be a dagger. Like the WHL expansion could be a dagger in the BCHL, and the WHL adding this, it's only going to make things more interesting because, one, you got a lot of teams that have failed in certain cities, and now Chilliwack could be mending the fence from their very rough history. And Chris, I don't know if you've followed a lot of WHL, but this is a league that has steadied itself off of good hockey. And look at the players that have come out of the league.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you see it a lot in hockey as it is right now. Over the last couple of years, they've added Vegas and Seattle, and you see the progress they've had. Now you're adding two teams to another league that has substantial success in producing good talent for the future of the NHL. So to me, I mean, why not? Seems like a good idea.
Yeah, and with just my last thought on this is, with the WHL having so many teams in the Vancouver, Seattle area, it makes sense that they're adding more in that area. So, And speaking of Vancouver teams, in the NHL, Thatcher Demko came off of injured reserve today. He hasn't played since February. He wants to be a boost to his team and their playoff hopes. And Chris, I got a question for you. Could Demko rebound quickly after an injury-ridden season?
I mean, so I was skeptical to see how he would do. Obviously, they're playing the Devils, a playoff team. So I was curious how he would do in his first game back. And through the first 20 minutes, he stopped all 7 shots he faced. So if there was any question so far to start the game about rust, it looks pretty good. Now, as far as Vancouver's concerned, they definitely need this boost because Lankinen, the last 2 games he's played, he's let in 4 goals in each game. And maybe that's – part of me wondered if that maybe was due to overwork, where he was a backup in recent years, and now I think he's at 44, maybe 46 games this year, which I can't remember the last time recently that he's played that much. Obviously, we knew Saros had the majority of the job in Nashville last season, but they're still in the playoff hunt, and we'll get to that towards the end of the podcast. But a loss tonight doesn't bode well from them going forward. So, get your number 1 goalie back. Maybe it's a boost to the whole team. They are up 1-0 after the end of the first period.
And the Devils, which we'll get into how they're doing soon, but the Devils have been rocky as of late. The Canucks have been rockier as of late. And like when you have Elias Pettersson out of the lineup, Pia Suter is your number 1 center tonight, I believe. You traded Miller. There's been a few, it's been a very drama-ridden season for the Canucks and the Rangers even, but we're seeing in this part of the season what depth can do for a team. And I think if Vancouver comes out of this game with a win, regardless of if it's 7-6 or 1-0, it's a good thing just for their hopes of playoffs. And I don't see why they wouldn't be able to build on a minor win like today. because the Devils are a good challenge, but like I say, it's a minor win. Demko comes back. It'll give him confidence, but it allows you to kind of sort. It allows the team to sort through some things depth-wise where they may not have regular looks at players in high or intense situations or in must-win games, I should rephrase, that are playing in the minors, and they come up and they look like they're ready to go because they've been cooking so long in the oven. So maybe that's what Vancouver gets out of this game. But I think the storyline tonight, the focus is on Demko, and what a story it would be if he got a shutout.
I would love it, especially for my fantasy team. I just moved them off IR this afternoon.
Okay. Well, I've been thankful that I don't have a goaltender on IR for fantasy. So, but speaking of players I do have in fantasy, and a guy who is out week to week with an upper body injury, Gabriel Viladri is out week to week. He's a part of the Jets' first line of Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Gabriel Viladri himself. They lead the league in scoring for first lines in the NHL. His goal heading into the 2024-25 season was to play a full 82-game season for the first time in his career. He previously missed 35 games with the Jets in 23-24, which was his first season after he was acquired in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. He missed 35 games with a sprained MCL. Scott Arniel, he was sure to describe it as a freak injury because obviously it's something that didn't happen. There was a slip in the game against Buffalo where it looks like he either got slew-footed or tripped up. I don't want to say either for sure, but as he fell down and it looks like he might have whacked his head on the ice or something along those lines. So it's something. My suggestion to people reading is or listening. I'm in article mode, I guess. The people who are listening or watching this, go look at the play. Jacob Stoller has a very, very good clip on his Twitter account, X account, and it shows where Mark Scheifele and Gabriel Viladri are crashing the net to try and make it a 5-4 game. And as the play shoots up the other way, which led to or a 3 or 4-4 game, it would have been, pardon me. But the play shot up the other way, and as the Sabres defender turned around, I don't know if their skates got caught or something, but Viladri hit the ice, and he hit the ice hard. So Arniel describing it as a freak injury makes me wonder if it's relative to that play, but you never know. And another clarification that Arniel made, that it was not anything to do with the puck to the ear that Viladri took earlier in the opening frame of the game. So, and last, out of all the notes that I do have for this, Vilardri's playoff status is now undetermined, which is a massive blow to the Jets, considering he's on your top line, and when you have a line that's driving scoring like that, maybe you got to look somewhere else now. And go ahead.
It's a big loss. I mean, I put him as my player to watch for yesterday's game, I believe. If not, it was the game before that. But It is a tough loss. Granted, I don't know what you would expect from moving him up, but Perfetti is not a bad option to put on that first line. I know they've gelled well all year, like you said. They lead the league in scoring for a top line. But this is like we said at the deadline. Is Winnipeg is one of those teams where they have the depth where an injury comes up, they can move somebody from a second line to the top line, but they have the piece that they can move in that allows them to slide everybody. And, we talked about adding those pieces, and of course, we at the time said Frederick and Carlo from Boston, and they ended up going with Tanev and Luke Shen, the two pieces they got. So this is exactly the situation that we presented a couple weeks ago. Unfortunate that it happens, but I think they're very well set up that they still can make a run in the playoffs, depending upon how long he is out for.
And just to go on a bit of a thought that you were mentioning there is, with Vilardri going down at the time that he does, and it's week to week, you don't know if he's going to make make it back in time for playoffs because everything's up in the air now. I wrote specifically earlier today that you could not, like, why would you make a crash contingency plan on one of your top guys going down when that could happen? Because it's a what if. And you're in the situation now where hindsight's 2020, but look at the prospects you got in the pool right now. Look at the guys like Brad Lambert who can come up and he can be a fourth line, third line guy as a depth reasons. You also got Dominic Toninato, Axel Jonsson-Fjallby with the Moose, guys who have played NHL games who can come up with the experience. That these are guys who would kill for big game moments like that, and especially in the stretch run of the season when you're in the race for the President's Trophy. I don't see why the Jets wouldn't make a move like that, but at the same time, they have so many players that can play that bottom six role and jump up and play a decently well second, first line role. Why would you make a move like that so late in the season? Like, take a look at the Tanev acquisition. It solidifies your third line. Say if you want to put Iafallo, Perfetti, Ehlers on that first line, you have a lot of insurance for something like this to happen, or if it would happen. But like I said, hindsight is 2020 for any team. Like, it would be as if, like, my example that I had in a conversation on the phone about a week and a half ago is, why would a team plan for a top guy to go down? And it would be like if the Oilers planned for Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid to get hurt and be on an extended period of time in playoffs. Why would you plan for something like that?
You don't. But
yeah, like you don't plan for anything like that. It happens and it's unfortunate, but this is a point of adversity in the season of the Winnipeg Jets, who have been rather successful with 48 wins on the season so far. But now they're in the position where they got to rely on their depth. And the one great thing about this that it's going to show is the playoffs is built on depth and adversity. Is you deal with injury and you got to go through it as a team. So that's just kind of my wrap thoughts here. But I want to really talk about a guy who has played for the Winnipeg Jets at one point in his career. That's Jonathan Kovacevic, who's now with the New Jersey Devils. It was quite the tense media scrum, and Sheldon Keefe was not pulling punches with his comments. Kovacevic, his comments, which, Chris, I don't know if you heard him or watched him, but Kovacevic, his comments they're pretty out there, and I think it's time for a video on this one,
Kovacevic just mentioned to us that he thinks the team kind of needs to have that playoff mentality going down the stretch. Is that something
Kovacevic just needs to play better. That would help. Yeah.
Wow. And then, of course, tonight, he takes a dumb penalty in the first period.
Yeah. And he just got that massive extension right before the deadline. And Kovacevic, his comments were, we're in a fight. And hopefully that gets us in a playoff mentality. We're 10, 11 games out, and hopefully we carry that into the playoffs. The results are tough, but we're in a fight here, and we're not going to back down. And that's what prompted Sheldon Keefe's comments. Oh, he was very direct, and the immediate, all right, I'm leaving this media scrum, that shows you maybe it's more of the locker room stuff, because Sheldon Keefe, I don't remember him doing this in Toronto at all. I don't remember there being a lasting moment where you're like, whoa. Like,
well, I wonder part of it too, like they lost their captain. Hughes is done for the season. So
true.
I mean, at that point, is it just they're all in chaos and they're trying to figure out how to bounce back and save the season? I mean, realistically, I asked this question to you last week. Are they safe? And here we are a week later, and this has come out now. So it brings the question, we can get to it later on with the playoff conversation, but are they safe? There is 11 games left. Somebody gets hot. We see it with two other teams in their own division right now. Somebody gets hot like that in a stretch, and the Devils could be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and the Devils, who somehow, some way, are down 1-0 to Vancouver at the moment. And I say somehow, some way, because the betting odds made it seem like New Jersey was going to absolutely wipe the floor with Vancouver. But right now, you got the Rangers sniffing up your back right now. But that's the fun in the stretch run of the season where things aren't determined until they're determined. So with this whole comments toward Kovacevic, I don't see why it had to be so public. This is a situation where a coach is pissed off over something that happened, and a player kind of put the knife, kind of twisted the wound a little bit more than they should have. And I think Sheldon Keefe he's making it known that he wants to be more outspoken, and this is where he picked his spot.
Yeah, like I said, the frustration in the locker room. It's all frustration right now. And he just let it boil over into that moment. He heard the name, and it was like he saw red, and just everything he felt came out in that moment.
Yeah, and with the way that things are going to shape up, this could be a pivotal moment of the season for New Jersey. So, and speaking of teams that could have pivotal moments, Gabriel Landeskog, he's resumed skating with the Colorado Avalanche, and now he's taking full practices with the team.
I said it last week. They just get better and better. They snuck right in. They passed the Wild. They're now in that 3 spot. They're setting up for a matchup with Dallas, and they're going to get somebody like Landeskog, most likely it sounds like, back to their lineup.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week, but now the whole thing with Landeskog is he's taking hits in practice. He's skating really, I don't want to say really hard, but he's skating to a point where it's obvious that he's comfortable. And is this a pivotal moment for the Avalanche after what they did at the deadline?
It's like another deadline ad way after the deadline. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's a steal for that team. I mean, I'm trying to look up right now what they're currently at for their recent stretch, but I mean, like I said, they moved from a wild card spot to third in the Pacific. I mean, in the what division am I thinking of here? Central, and all of a sudden, they could catch Dallas for the 2 spot.
Yeah, and maybe they can make a really good push for that final spot or the first spot.
8-1-1 for the last 10 games, and they've won 4 of their last 5.
Yeah, and
so
11 points out, you're tied with Winnipeg, and I'm not saying Winnipeg is going to slump, but Colorado being 8-1-1 in their last 10 games, and they're not showing signs of slowing down, is scary. And if you add your captain back to the mix of things, that could provide a really strong jolt to the team.
We'll get to the Winnipeg stuff a little bit later. I have some questions for you.
Yeah, and Chris, this is one topic that's kind of burning a fire in my belly at the moment, and I couldn't wait to get to it now, but here we are. The referees separated Darcy Kemper and Jeremy Swayman from a potential goalie fight, and as the headline says, let them fight, because it was great marketing for the league, and also Captain reset the goalie market. I think maybe it just goes to show the kind of guy or the kind of player that he is, because the comments afterwards with Zadorov, he had some choice words for Swayman and some reporters in that scrum. But the Kings, they eviscerated the Bruins 7-2, and Swayman led in 7 goals and 23 shots. It was
That game, I mean, the Kings look good. That's back-to-back games for them, 7 goals.
yeah.
They hit
The
7 on
Kings-
Saturday against Carolina.
Oh yeah, and the Kings are looking like what they should be.
They look really good. But realistically, I've always been with the mindset of if if a player's coming at the ice and the other player takes his gloves off, that's a fight. Let it happen.
Yep.
I mean,
And like, I think that, like you said, gloves off, let them fight. But goalie fights, if both guys are willing participants or willing combatants, give it to them, let them go.
right.
Yeah, they get tossed and all that, but
I mean, the situation, Swayman's already got all of his stuff off. Kemper's at center ice, and he's starting to take his stuff off, and he's ready to go. So he's accepting it. Let it just happen at that point. Like, they're both there.
yeah, and the let them fight thing is we see it year after year with many teams, and this was just the latest example. I remember one was Fleury and Binnington, and
The best
What?
was Tim Thomas, Carey Price.
oh yeah, and well, I want to that was for me. It was just a moment of if that happened, that would have been a clip that was posted everywhere for
Yep.
the next year, it feels like. But it didn't happen. It's just going to be a clip talked about on a big what if, because how often do we have goalie fights?
I can't remember the last one. I feel like you see it more in the AHL.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's once a year you see one in the AHL, but like the NHL, the last one off the top of my head might have been Binnington Fleury.
Yeah, that's what I think at least. And who knows, maybe with players getting drafted and teams getting new guys, maybe we'll see guys who are more willing to scrap and can get away from the refs quick enough.
Yeah.
And speaking of the draft, the NHL GM meetings just wrapped up. And I find this incredibly interesting that it's such a discussion topic now, well before the 2025 decentralized draft has even happened. But will the NHL return to a centralized draft format in 2026? Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, he noted that, he said it in February sometime, that it might be a possibility. And now it's coming out, it's trickling out that GMs regretted their decision to vote in favor of the decentralized format. Bettman has made it known that he's not a fan of it. And I'm wondering if the owners maybe have a bit more pull here, because Bettman even noted at the NHL GM meetings that the owners are not in favor of a decentralized draft format. And you would think cost-wise they would be, but the NHL draft is such a spectacle and marquee event in this calendar for all NHL fans that why would you not have something continue the way it was when it had such a good rendition in 2024. I was very fortunate to go to the Sphere in Las Vegas and witness it live. And I remember taking it in saying, if this is the last, this is one hell of a way to go out. But like I said, we'll see, or the NHL will have to see what the decentralized format looks like. But I don't see it being a continued thing. I see it being a one and done because of, like I said, the marquee event calendar, and it's such a big event that they televise. It's a spectacle for the NHL, and it's a moment that these young kids will remember forever. And I remember it late 7th round, getting nearly to the last pick, and here's one kid in the stands who looks dejected, and he looks like, oh, I'm not going to get called, and his name gets called. It was a Toronto 7th round pick, and the family, they all shot up and they were excited, they were happy, and they celebrated like he was a first overall pick. Like it was such a huge thing to them. But it's moments like that, and then he races down to meet the team, shake the hands of the like executives and all that. But it's stuff like that you're taking away from this one draft class. So
yeah, I mean, having everybody there, especially when you just draft a player and he gets to come up and meet, the leaders of his organization and all of that, I love that. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about the NHL draft is just the line of people when there's a pick. And they all come up and they all shake the hand and they finally get the jersey and have to stand in the middle of everybody and take their first picture in their future sweater. It's one of the best moments about being drafted to the NHL.
Yeah, and just speaking of the 2024 draft is the Beckett-Seneke pick, 3rd overall to Anaheim, is just the shock on his face that he went so early. And it's moments like that, like those moments will still happen regardless of centralized or decentralized. But him going down and meeting the executives right there, taking that photo, like even if these players don't play a single game, that's something that people cannot take away from these 17 and 18-year-olds, that they were drafted to the NHL with the 1st overall pick or the very last overall pick, whatever number that is, into the NHL. Because their name it's in the books. It happened. And another thing about the 2025 NHL draft, in Elliot Friedman's latest 32 Thoughts blog, he mentioned that there was a discussion about potentially reversing the decision to decentralize the draft this year. But plans, they didn't go forward with those discussions into proper talks or formal talks, I guess, because plans were already quote unquote locked in. And I find that interesting because our plans really locked in until it's set in stone, because they didn't have a venue until how long ago? They didn't know where things are going to be, how it was going to happen. The NHL has a template that they use for every single draft except for the Sphere, because the Sphere was unique in its own way. But the NHL has a template of how they do these drafts. So I think that the NHL could have centralized it anyways, but who knows what the planning would have looked like. I don't think they would have wanted to.
All set. I think they're just let it happen and then we'll readjust.
Yeah. And another interesting Bettman conversation about the GM meetings is he's dead set against expanding the playoff format. The AHL has a 23-team playoff format, and the NHL has a 16-team playoff format. It's two different worlds, but from the lens of the AHL, they're a developmental league, and it's developmental purpose. They want as many teams in as possible. It's not like there's a 1st overall pick at play in the AHL. So AHL, they have their 23 teams, but if the NHL were to do that, they would have to redo the draft order, the draft lottery stuff. So it would be a headache.
I really like the idea of the 1-8. What I was curious on, and I forget where I saw this about the whole playoff format, was that there was a potential for something along the lines of what the NBA does, of a play-in game, like I think it was worded a best of 3 series, and that team moves on and becomes the way NBA does it, if you're not familiar, is 7 plays 8 and 9 plays 10. The loser of 9-10 is out. The winner of 9-10 will play the loser of 7-8. And then the winner of 7-8 becomes the 7th seed. The winner of the next matchup goes on and becomes the 8th seed, and they move on. I saw that was floated out there somewhere as a potential, and I forget. I thought I saw Bettman wasn't opposed to it, but the idea of the 1 through 8, I love. I would love even more if we could somehow get some sort of the division look back, like where they had 5 teams for each division. I mean, now obviously with 32 teams, maybe it doesn't work because 30 teams you can do 5 teams in each division and you're all set. But overall I love the idea of the 1 through 8, and I think it sets up for much better matchups and new rivalries that we haven't seen.
And just a thought that I've had about this whole playoff stuff is when it comes to tiebreakers, could you imagine if the NHL had a tiebreaker series rather than a play-in series?
A 1-game playoff. Winner gets in.
A 1-game, quote-unquote, season decider, and that decides if you make the playoffs or if you miss the playoffs. Could you imagine the intensity that it would happen?
Imagine, say for instance, you get a game where it's Buffalo versus Philly. Imagine what kind of rivalry that would turn into in a 1-game play-in game.
Like play-in tiebreaker series, but like that's just something that I have. But with Bettman not wanting to expand the playoff format, I would assume that it's in any capacity. That's what I'm thinking, but you never know. Is maybe we'll see play-in series or tiebreaker series. But another bit of information that came out was the expanded 3-on-3 overtime talk, and it's likely not happening anytime soon. We kind of touched on this a little bit last week, but I find this interesting as more information trickled out later in the week with the GM meetings that GMs and players have decided that it would be too much wear and tear to play the extra 2 to 5 minutes per game to expand 3-on-3 overtime.
I can see this being a conversation for a long time where somebody's going to come up with a new idea of what works in overtime, and then we're going to have this conversation again, and then somebody's going to do this, and they're going to have this idea. It's going to be somebody's going to try to always fix this whole idea of the overtime into the shootout. But they've gone this way. It's worked. I mean, I haven't seen really any complaints from many people about the way things are right now. And I think that's why maybe they're leaning the way they are with, let's leave it the way it is. I mean, it's worked. Everybody likes it. I know some fans of a team that loses doesn't like the idea of it being 2 points to the winning team, or whatever. I forget what I'm thinking here. I saw it the other day. Somebody was mad about, getting 1 point for losing in overtime. That was what it was. And they were like, well, it's a loss. You shouldn't come away with a point.
Yeah, and I agree with not coming out of that with a loss, but I almost wonder is if you go past regulation, should it be maybe just a 1 point for a win, or because that's essentially what it is right now.
That's the way it should be. Is maybe you go to overtime, the losing team doesn't get a point, and the winning team gets 1.
And it would be more of a push to get things done in regulation, and it'd be a little bit more dramatic at the end of regulation. Say if a team is like if they're tied 2-2 and the Leafs have a power play on Calgary, and it could be like a playoff fate for Calgary if they lose in regulation or if they don't win or something like that.
Right.
Like that's just a little thing that I just came up with off the top of my head. But speaking of playoffs, we have an absolute tire fire right now with the Eastern Conference wild card. It's way more chaotic than the Western Conference. And Chris, the Eastern Conference, it feels like it's going to go down to the absolute last possible minute. Is you got Ottawa and Montreal currently holding the first and second wild card spots. The Rangers, they're right behind Montreal with 1 point, but Montreal has 2 games in hand. Columbus has fallen out of grace somehow, some way, but they are getting Sean Monahan and Eric Goodbranson back today, so that could be a positive boost to them. Detroit, 70 points, 69 games played, 5 points out of that wild card spot. And I think that's where the cutoff is for the Eastern Conference.
There's one team you didn't name, and they need to be mentioned, and that's the New York Islanders. And you brought it up earlier about the Rangers potentially catching the Devils. The team that they need to worried about is the Islanders.
Yeah.
I mean, that team is coming. They have, I believe, I'm trying to find it in my notes, but they have 5 points, I believe, they have points in their last 5 games. And they're playing some very nice hockey. That they're only 7 points back of the Devils, I believe, right now. 7 points back. The tough part is their schedule coming. The Devils get that benefit where, they hold a 6-point advantage for that final spot. And they have an easier schedule to end the season. But to me, it's wide open. I mean, if the Devils lose tonight to a team that's not in a playoff spot, the Rangers, Islanders, and even Columbus on their skid are coming right for it. And I have a tough part thinking Ottawa falls out in any way, shape, or form. I mean, they look good, and they keep winning, or if they don't win, they somehow come away with a point. And so they're holding on to that first spot pretty safely, I think. That's that second spot where the Devils could fall off, and we could somehow get 2 Metro teams where one slides into the 3 spot and then the other one falls into that other wild card spot. But Montreal has been hot. I mean, they're 5-1-4 in their last 10. I mean, they lose, they get a point. It's hard to see what happens there going forward. I mean, Detroit, as a Red Wings fan, my weekly Red Wings rant, I think it might be done. Tonight might be the game. I mean, you get facing Utah, who's a team just like you outside the playoff spot, was in the playoffs earlier in the season, and people were hyped up about this could be the year or for Detroit's case, we get into the playoffs and break that streak. In Utah's case, we're a franchise that just moved, and we could get back. We could be in the playoffs in our first season, and they've both just fallen out. And Utah's obviously working their way back, but Detroit's just going the other way. And I'm tired of Peter Mrazek starting in goal every single game. He looked great against Vegas in that 3-0 shutout, but you had Cam Talbot, who was carrying you through pretty much that whole win streak, got you to where you were, and then we go out and got Mrazek, and he just all of a sudden comes in and becomes the starting goalie from a Blackhawks team that was not good or is not good. And all of a sudden, this is the guy we're expecting to take over the reins of goaltending and lead us to the playoffs and break that streak. Give me a break. And the more and more I see his name starting, it's just, yep, this is going to be how it is. And are we just throwing this away?
Yeah, and I was very surprised with the way that Detroit has started to slump the way that they have. They've been in a position where they could win, but they've also been in a position where it's kind of rocky for them because they could have added some pretty good talent to their lineup, but they haven't done that so far. And I think it's costed them a lot of their games going into this stretch run of the season. They got 13 games left to play, and it's kind of obvious that now's the time to pick it up because they're 2-8-0 in their last 10, and that's not a good stretch by any means because when you got Ottawa and Montreal seemingly locking down the wild card spots as of right now, and I'll reiterate that it feels like every single week we record and it just completely changes right after we record. But I don't see a world where Detroit can catch Montreal even right now.
12 of their final 13 games are against playoff teams.
So it's basically a deciding dagger for them.
Yep. You gotta beat the teams that are ahead of you.
Yeah. And whichever end you want to stab that dagger with, that's for Detroit to figure out here. Because like I said, 13 games left, and you said 12 of 13 are against playoff teams. that's the deciding factor for them. And teams that I think have a slimmer chance, I think Columbus is still in it because of, one, you're getting the boost that you need and some key veterans coming back to your lineup. And also, it's an internal upgrade for Columbus in this stretch of the season. 4 points behind. That's only 2 wins when you think about it. 13 games left, like Detroit. They could fare well, but it's just that stretch of the season. Teams are going to hit harder. They're getting ready for that playoff battle, and I don't see a world where Ottawa falls out, and I'll knock on wood for that one. But like I said, you never know. Montreal is the one team that I wonder, are they going to fall out? I don't see them staying in, but I'm also not quite hopeful that the 3 teams trailing them at the moment will be able to catch them.
So here's the thing about those other 3 teams. All 3 of them have out of their seven of their remaining games are against playoff teams. The Rangers last 11 games, 7 of them playoff teams. Islanders, 7 of their last 13, same with Columbus. 7 of their last 13 against playoff teams. The thing about Columbus is out of those 13 games, 3 of them are against Ottawa, and they face Ottawa 3 times in 11 days. If Columbus is going to somehow find a way to make the playoffs, they need to come away with points in each of those games, whether it's 2 or 1.
Whoever made the scheduling for that must have had like a ball to look into.
It's when I looked at it, I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, Columbus plays I'm looking at the schedule at the moment. Columbus plays Ottawa in Ottawa on Saturday the 29th, and then they play Ottawa in Ottawa again on April 6th, and then they go to Columbus facing Ottawa on the 8th of April. Whoever had that schedule just had a ball to look at, like a crystal ball to look into and say, that's how we want to do this.
Every time we mention something like that, though, it never works out that way. So pretty much, just because I just brought that up with Columbus, they're probably going to lose all 3 games. So sorry to any Columbus fans.
You never know. You never know.
We're going to apologize ahead of time. If you're listening to this and you're a Columbus fan, I am very sorry right now if they go 0-3 against Ottawa.
I'm going to have to hide myself from a couple of group chats that I'm in after you said that. Oh, gosh. But like I said, we've mentioned this a few times, is the wild card in the Eastern Conference is an absolute clusterfuck right now. And speaking of the complete opposite, that's the Western Conference, because it seems like there's more to work with, because I think as the way it stands right now, Anaheim has no shot of making it, because 13 points out and you only got 12 games left. Utah 6 points out, 12 games left. Vancouver 5 points out, 12 games left, but they're tied 1-1 right now in their game, so that could go either way. Calgary 13 games left, 4 points out. So that wild card race is going to be incredibly interesting. And with the way that the wild card is looking in the Eastern Conference, I don't think it'll go down to the wire. No. Like or in the Western Conference, I don't think it'll go down to the wire like the Eastern Conference will, because St. Louis is surging at the right time, and it looks like they're going to lock down one of the 2 wild card spots.
That's my guess. The way it looks to me right now is the Western Conference. Let me put it this way: the playoff field looks set. The 2 questions I have about the playoff setup right now for the Western Conference, and the first one's for you. How safe do you feel about Winnipeg winning the Central?
I think Winnipeg winning the Central is best case scenario for them. One, given their current injuries with Neil Pionk and Gabriel Viladri out week to week. And also, why would you want to go up against a Dallas or Colorado in round one this year when your past two seasons have been struggling to get past game 5 of the first round. I'm not saying a team like St. Louis or Minnesota is going to be any easier, but why would you want to go up against a Dallas or Colorado who bounced the Jets in 5 games last year, and Dallas who have won? The Jets have played well against in the regular season, but playoffs is a whole different animal, and Dallas, they perform in the postseason.
The reason I brought this up to you was I think neither division lead in the Western Conference is safe.
No, I agree with you.
And I pulled this up, and the reason why I wanted to ask you about Winnipeg. Winnipeg's last 11 games, 7 of them are against playoff teams. The Dallas Stars have 13 games left, so they have 2 games in hand on Winnipeg. And correct me if I'm wrong, 8 points out?
8 points out.
So say they win those 2. They're 4 points out. But for right now, 13 games left. 9 of those are against non-playoff teams. To me, that opens the door that Dallas could reach Winnipeg. And I believe 1 game of those 4 is against Winnipeg. I believe it's early April.
So I'll pull up schedule pretty quick here. Early April, the Jets just play. Oh, the Jets do play in Dallas, April 10th.
That's what sparked my interest on is Winnipeg safe to win the Central, especially watching them yesterday. They lost to Buffalo.
Yeah,
they lost Viladri. Again, I think they have the depth that they absolutely could be safe, but with the way the schedule lines up right now for both teams, it opens the door to have the conversation of here comes Dallas. And of course, we talked about it, they got Rantanen. Mm-hmm. They added that piece to the top line.
Nah.
I don't know about obviously the extent of the rest of our injuries. We know Heiskanen is out. I believe that we said the rest of the year. If he's back, it's playoff time.
Yeah.
Have not heard. I haven't seen anything. Maybe you have Sagan.
Yeah, I haven't heard any, or I haven't seen anything on Sagan.
So, if somehow they got Sagan back before the end of the season, that would be another like a Landeskog boost. So, realistically, to me, no matter what, I think the matchups for Winnipeg are either Colorado if they finish 2, and if they finish 1, to me it lines up to still just be St. Louis. Which and don't want to play the hottest team at the hottest time.
Yeah. One thought that I do have regarding the Central Division is I don't think the first 3 spots are safe. And I say that because Dallas could overtake Winnipeg, like you said, with those 2 games in hand. But I think Minnesota could catch Colorado with 1 game in hand, and they're 4 points behind.
And Dallas is playing Minnesota tonight. I just remembered that off the top of my head. I think it's 1-1.
It's tied, or it's scoreless right now.
Is it?
So
okay.
if Minnesota beats Dallas, that's better implication for Winnipeg, but that's Minnesota right on the doorstep of Colorado. And this whole Western Conference, the main chunk of the drama is the Central Division, because in my season predictions at the start of the season, I looked at the way that the Central and the Pacific lined up, and I almost want to make an argument that there should be a way that 6 teams from one division could make the playoffs. Because at the start of the season, you could have argued that 6 teams in the Central should be fighting for a playoff spot right now. And arguably there is 6 teams, but with Utah being 6 points out of a wild card spot, it's hard to include them at the moment. But the team I thought was going to be in a playoff spot, maybe even winning the Central at the moment, was Nashville. But
that's who I had too. I thought they would be a lock for a playoff team.
Oh yeah, and that obviously didn't go the way that they would have hoped. And now here we are. You got 5 teams in the Central making playoffs, which I had a good feeling was going to happen, and that was part of my predictions. two of the teams are out of playoff spots for two teams that are currently fighting for wildcard spots, which I look at now with hindsight being 2020. I look at it and I'm like, okay, it makes sense why it is the way it is, but also when you look at playoff matchups as they stand, and you look at teams that are fighting for things, you would think that the Pacific would have had at least one team in the wild card race, especially with the way Calgary is playing. And don't get me wrong, they got 3 games in hand on St. Louis with just 4 points back, but also 5, 2, and 3 in your last 10, and you haven't been as dominant as you were all season. And like you said, St. Louis dominating the way they are is...
Well, Calgary's also won 3 straight, so here they come. It's
but
the back and forth battle for that last spot. I mean, they got Seattle, Dallas, Edmonton, and Colorado to end the month.
But
that's
4 points is 4 points.
That's your season right there. If you can't come away, I mean, that's 3 teams in the playoff spot out of 4 games. If you can't come away with, we'll say, set the benchmark for maybe minimum 5 point. That's a win against Seattle and a point in the other 3 games. If you can't come away with 5 points, you're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think just the way that it sits now, I think the Western Conference, like you and I have already said, is kind of locked up the way it is.
Yeah.
But there would have to be a significant push from one of the teams outside of the wild card race to make that playoff spot. And Chris,
Vancouver getting Demko.
Yeah, you never know.
The other one is the Pacific safe? The Kings are like the hottest team in hockey right now.
Oh yeah, okay. The Pacific division lead being safe. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I thought I mentioned both divisions not being safe.
Yeah, you did, and it left my mind. But
they got a game in hand, and they're 5 points back. Yeah. And the way they're scoring 14 goals in 2 games.
Yeah.
Again, one of them's Carolina, who, when we recorded last week, was the hottest team in hockey at that point in time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that was their first loss. I think that snapped the winning streak. No, actually, yes, it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they got Rangers, Colorado, Toronto, and San Jose to end the month.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at standings and all that, and just there's teams that are hot, and then there's teams that are not. But
yeah.
LA 8-1-1 in your last 10. Won 3 straight. Vegas has also won 3 straight. So,
Peter Mrazek just left the game.
Oh,
hold on, hold the phone.
Chris just wished for that guy to get hurt. Jesus Christ.
We really are cursed. we so are cursed.
Oh, fuck, Chris, come on.
Somebody, who was that, just skated into him? Down the tunnel, yep. Oh, God.
They're going to have your fucking head.
Can we just
Someone's going to have your fucking head.
Yeah, it's Alex Lyon in net now. Can we just name next week's episode We're Cursed?
Or in brackets, let them fight, we're cursed.
I literally mentioned the Kings being the hottest team in hockey. Watch them go on a 4-game losing streak. We talk about the Blues being what they are. Here they come on a losing streak. Watch next week. The whole standings are going to be flip-flopped.
Yeah, Dallas Chicago somehow makes playoffs.
Dallas will be in a wild card spot.
No, don't say that. For the love of God. Oh,
boy. Well, at least Lions in that. Maybe the Red Wings will win tonight.
Oh, my God. I cannot believe that.
And that, by the way, is producer Connor. He comes in with the good one-liners when we need them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's head. Knee to the head.
Yeah.
I think that was Hayton.
Oh, my gosh. Anyway, so if playoffs started today, is in the Eastern Conference, you got Ottawa versus Florida, Tampa versus Toronto, Montreal versus Washington, and New Jersey versus Carolina. What a couple few matchups you got in there with Ottawa, Florida, the Kachucks, and then Tampa, Toronto, which is a great series regardless.
Yeah. Are we assuming Matthew will be back for that series?
You don't think he'd want to play against his brother in the playoffs?
I think he definitely does. The question is just what's the extent? Like,
true. And looking to the West, St. Louis, Winnipeg, Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Vegas, Edmonton, and LA. 4 really hard-hitting matchups in the West. Do you think it just becomes the NHL tries to schedule everything around the Western Conference matchups at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. Like, being on the East Coast, I'm going to have to deal with 10 o'clock puck drops for all the games I want to watch. Like, I'm going to want to be locked in on every LA-Edmonton game. Now, you mentioned it earlier, and nobody knows, unless it's come out and I haven't seen it yet, the severity of McDavid and Draisaitl's injuries.
Well, from what I did read, I was surfing TSN today, just when I was on break at work, and can't remember which one of their staff writers wrote it, but they mentioned that McDavid's injury is likely not to affect them come playoff time. Nothing to be said about Draisaitl right now. So I would assume that's a good sign for the team, but it was such vague wording that you don't want to put a bow on it and hope for the best, but like, you don't know.
That to me takes away from what that series will be, because they face each other. I think we talked about it, but I think this is potentially the 3rd straight season they've met in the first round.
I believe so.
And to have that series with what the Kings went out and added and not have Draisaitl and McDavid would just honestly take it all away. Oh, look at that. Alex Lyon's in and there's a goal. So
you are fucking cursing the Red Wings.
Where's Talbot? I literally kept saying I want Talbot. And of course it's Alex Lyon. But
EA Sports. Go fuck yourself.
Oh my gosh. I should
live.
Oh, Chris. Hold it back if you got that sound used for the first time.
There's going to be a wanted poster on every Detroit group I'm in tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
Gotta find
all
a
right. Or get a whole like facelift or something. Change your identity.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh man.
I'm gonna have to wear my Red Wings jersey next week.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this week of the Inside the Rink podcast.
Yeah, before
Thank
I curse somebody else.
Yeah, no shit. Thank you for tuning into episode 31. It's been a blast. Chris and I enjoy talking hockey, and Chris enjoys cursing hockey teams, apparently. We'll see you next week, next Monday, when Chris and I talk more playoff stuff and all the news that comes out. And thank you for listening.